How's it going, friends? It's Billy here, and in today's video, it might seem a little bit silly because Ryzen is literally just around the corner and going to be launching here in March in Q1 of 2017, but I thought I would make this video anyway because this is what's available right now, and if you're absolutely aching for a PC, even though I would suggest to wait, here's a little suggestion if you're in the budget building category. So this budget PC is going to be around $450 American, and all of the parts listed will be in the description below if you want to check them out for yourself. I'll also leave a PCPartPicker list in there if you guys want to check it out and make any changes for yourselves. If you guys do have any difference of opinions, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to debate you guys about my choices for this, but here we go, and let's get right into it with some of the justifications. First of all, Intel introduced hyperthreading to some of their Pentium line of CPUs, and most notable of the bunch is the G4560. Now, comparing it to the others in the line, it's cheaper at an MSRP, or manufacturer's suggested retail price, of only $64. Now, it has 2 cores and a total of 4 threads. Now, we do know that threads will never perform as well as true cores, but it can help run applications and games that require a quad-core CPU. Now, just a little note over here, it's actually only clocked slower by 200 MHz compared to the i3-6100 of last gen, and at almost half of its cost. Now, this benchmark over here that I'm showing you guys, it's from EuroGamer. I'll also leave a link in the description below, and it shows that the G4560 paired with 2400 MHz of DDR4 RAM performs almost identically to an i3-6100 with 2133 MHz DDR4 RAM, which goes to show you how much of a difference RAM speed can actually make. Now, one thing to note here is that the Pentium allows for 2400 MHz DDR4 RAM, while the older i3-6100 is indeed limited to 2133 MHz. Now that we're armed with this information, let's build ourselves a $450 gaming PC without compromising very much. So essentially what this PC is going to do, it's going to be gaming at 1080p, not necessarily ultra high settings, but you're going to be getting good frames at a good resolution and with very good detail as well. So let's start off with probably the second most expensive part of this build, which is going to be the motherboard. Now, I opted for a B52 motherboard instead of an H110 or a B150 or an H170 motherboard for the Kaby Lake compatibility. Now, some of those older motherboards from the last gen actually do support the newer Kaby Lake processors, but the issue being that you need to upgrade them with a firmware upgrade. The only problem is you would need to have an older Skylake CPU available in order to do that BIOS upgrade, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do so. So if you're by yourself, you don't have any friends who have a Skylake processor that they can borrow, or maybe your local shop isn't able to do it, I would suggest going with a B52 motherboard. This one over here is pretty good. This one that I liked over here from ASRock seems pretty decent. So if you don't have that capability, get this one instead. But if you can go cheaper and get an H110 motherboard instead, you can indeed do that. Just you have to upgrade the BIOS firmware in it first before doing that. Because if you're able to, you could possibly shave $20 to $30 off of this build and put that money towards other things. Now, that's not to say that this is a bad board at all. It actually supports 4 DIMM slots in total, so there's an upgrade path here if you decide to, let's say, get a quad-core CPU in the future, either from Skylake or Kaby Lake, and then that gives you a little bit further compatibility, which is always nice. We already talked about our CPU choice earlier. That's the G4560 clocked in at 3.5 gigahertz. This thing's going to do swell, and we actually were able to find it for cheaper than the MSRP of $64 at $61.99. So now we're going to touch upon the RAM, and as we mentioned earlier, DDR4 clocked in at 2400 MHz is the sweet spot that we're looking for. So I was able to find this RAM bundle over here from Corsair, some Vengeance LPX, 8GB in total, 2 sticks of 4GB, running us only $63.99, and that'll fit the bill perfectly. And as we mentioned, with this particular motherboard, we can add more RAM into the future, so this thing can go up to, you can have 2 sets of dual channel, 16GB, but for now, gaming at 8GB of RAM is more than enough, and this is the frequency that we want the RAM at. Okay, I know, it's 2017 and most builds should have an SSD, but I'm going to assume that perhaps you don't have one and this is the first time that you're building a PC, so what you're going to want is compromising between storage availability and also some decent speed. So if you have the money and you could pony up for an SSD for the primary drive, I would indeed do that, and let's say you have a spare 1 terabyte storage drive on the side, you can use that. But for me, I'm just going to suggest straight up, if you can only have one thing that does it all, is grab this Toshiba 1 terabyte 7200 RPM drive. It's less than $50. It has a terabyte of storage. It's going to be quick enough for most of your applications, but if I'm going to suggest one thing, and the first upgrade that you're going to do for this PC, if you decide to get something in the similar vein, is to get an SSD. It is a night and day difference between the traditional plattered hard drives, and honestly, that's the first thing that I would go with. So next up, let's talk about everything that's going to be housing this PC, and that's going to be the Corsair Carbide Series 88R. It is a micro ATX mid-tower case. Now, I haven't used this one personally, but I've used many Corsair cases in the past. Their build quality is really good, at least in my opinion, for the ones that I've used, and to get one for 40 bucks, I know there's a mail-in rebate, but overall, it's got some good reviews from what I've seen, and that's the one I'm going to suggest. It's got a nice little window so you can actually see everything inside of your computer afterwards. Overall, 40 bucks, you're going to get yourself, hopefully it looks like a decent case to house all of this in there. One thing to never skimp out on is the power supply. So we're going to make sure we're going to get something from a quality brand like EVGA and grab this 430 watt 80 plus certified ATX power supply. I wish we could have gone for something modular, but at this price point, I mean, if you want to bump up the price to 500 bucks, you can get something that's semi-modular to help out with the cable management. But for $33, you can't go wrong with something from EVGA. And this thing should be rock solid and should last you a long time. And it also fits the bill when it comes to total watt usage. So far, PCPartPicker estimates this thing is only going to use about 214. So we got more than enough headroom available using this power supply. Cable management might be a little bit messy, but you know what? We would try our best to kind of hide things, tuck things in, and try to keep it as neat and looking as possible. Now, if we're talking about 1080p gaming, we can't ignore the video card because that's going to be the thing that allows all of this to come together. And for this one, we're going to be going with a GTX 1050 Ti. So the beauty about this one is you could pick any of the brands that you want. I'm going with this one here because it's coming in at $134. It's the EVGA one. It's got 4 gigabytes of VRAM on this thing, and honestly, the cooler looks really sick. You don't even need the additional power supply ports on this thing. It actually draws the power from the PCI Express slot itself, which is pretty handy, so meaning it's low powered. But just because it doesn't use very much power doesn't mean that this is not a powerful video card. Especially at 1080p gaming, the 4 gigabytes is going to be more than enough. You're not going to be cranking this thing to 4K resolutions with everything all the way up to ultra. You're probably going to be playing a lot of games from like medium to high settings, and this computer is going to be more than capable enough to be able to do this. So if you guys need help with putting any of this together and you're taking these suggestions, be sure to check out the description below and also the card above. I'm going to be leaving a link to me building some of my computers and some of the pointers that I would give, especially when building a computer for the very first time. Overall, it's a very rewarding experience, and I would encourage you, if you've never built a gaming PC before and you really wanted to get into gaming PC, I would say just do it. Jump right in, start at something that is a low affordability for you if you can, and then just get to it and build it. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the suggestions for this build. It's sub $500, but it should get you some pretty awesome 1080p goodness in some of the modern games that you could play right now. Like I said, it's not going to be playing at 4K resolutions, 144 frames at ultra settings. You're going to be playing medium to high at 1080p, but it's going to be more than enough for a lot of people's needs. So if you guys enjoyed it, be sure to press that like button. If you'd like to see more videos just like this one, be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. As I mentioned earlier, if you guys don't like any of my picks, be sure to debate me in the comment section below, and be sure to leave your own suggestions as well, because I would love to see what everyone else comes up with. Now, I know this is a little bit weird because it's on the cusp of Ryzen coming out from AMD, so I know it's a little bit weird, but you know what, I thought I would make this video anyway to show that you could still get in some good gaming PCs at less than $500. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you very much.